In that first panel, you had the opportunity to hear more of the effect on the global movement of goods, because you had Australia, you had the US, you had Japan. So now we're going to take it down into more of a laser-focused panel, as I like to say. We're going to bring up our ASEAN partners, the Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia. Yeah. And so now you get to hear how it affects you directly as you're moving probably most of your goods. As you're selling to or dealing with your supply chain, whether it's in Kuala Lumpur, whether it's in Bangkok, whether it's in Manila, and even here at home. And so, again, this is the panel that I pushed for and I wanted desperately to have because of the effect on export controls here in ASEAN. Because you have a country that is just now implementing a law. You have a country that just started implementing a law. A country that just amended their law. And it's a great opportunity to hear from these people. So take the time. And again, if we get through, I want them to give their presentations. I want them to get their information out to you. And if we run out of time going into lunch, fear not. We can always grab our lunch, come back in, sit down, and still ask questions. The panelists, I will make sure you have a good plate of food ready for you if that's the case. I want to make sure that the participants have that opportunity to talk. So, how many people got their free parking pass? Please do not forget, we have plenty of them over there, and if we run out, let me know and we'll make sure that we can maybe get a few more to help out. Again, as I say, the slides from today's presentations will be on Customs website and the YouTube videos once those get edited and posted. And I'm sure it'll be identified on their website once they're ready. Now, I'm gonna do my normal plug at these events that I always do for Singapore Customs Trade First. Trade First program. I like it. If you have the means and the opportunity, do it. Because it offers the ability to get bulk licensing on strategic goods. But Mr. Scott, why does that matter to me? Because it makes life a lot easier for our licensing officers. And it gives us an opportunity to help you, walk you through, and get you to understand compliance much, much better. Take the opportunity. You have a lot of people from Singapore Customs here today. Ask them about it. Talk to them about it. Work with them on it. It's a great program. Plus, when I do, all right, how many people here have seen me doing an end-use check at your business, your company, your location? I know there's quite a few of you here. You don't have to identify yourself. But when I walk into a company and I know you're trade first, and I know you're on that band that authorizes you to use bulk permitting on strategic goods, man, I walk in with a warm fuzzy feeling right off the bat. And I know that you're gonna be a good company and it's gonna be a positive end-use check. That makes me feel a lot better. That makes my boss feel a lot better. And that makes my colleagues at Singapore Customs feel a lot better because I'm taking time out of their day to come do this. Trade first. And I may actually have a gift for somebody that actually makes an appointment with Singapore Customs to sign up for Trade First by the end of the day. No pressure there, guys, gals. They're looking at me out of the corner of their eyes going, shut up, Scott. Okay, so we're gonna start this next panel. Let me introduce Alex Lopes, the Director of Non-Proliferation and all that lovely stuff, long titles. In the government, we like our really long titles. But Alex is gonna moderate this next panel. Again, as you're hearing them give their presentations, jot down a question. Because if you can't ask it, send it to me and I'll get it to them. Alex.
Thank you, Scott. Again, it's an honor for me to moderate this panel. So I'd like to introduce the panel participants. And just to comment on something that Tech said in his opening remarks, that strategic trade controls is only as strong as the weakest link. And as Scott mentioned in his remarks, we're honored to have representatives from Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore Customs, as well as Thailand, to talk about the strategic trade controls within their countries. With that, I'd like to introduce the panel participants. Justin Herrera from the Philippines, and Ridzuan from Malaysia, Wan Chai from Thailand, and our distinguished representative from Singapore, Janine Ho. So just to open, in my presentation, I talked about our Export Control Reform Act, and just passed by our Congress last year. Certainly one of the pillars of any strategic trade control program is the law. As Scott mentioned, we have various stages of different laws in a very strategic and important location in the world, to help our mutual efforts on proliferation and making sure that items don't get into the wrong hands. But I mentioned our Export Control Reform Act, which replaced our law that was originally passed in 1979 and expired in 1991. Just to illustrate the difficulty of getting a law passed, our law, the Export Administration Act, expired in 1991 and was renewed annually by our president by executive order. So it's no small feat to say that each of the countries represented here have been working diligently on strategic trade controls, laws that have been implemented, laws that are about to be implemented. With that, I'd like to introduce Justin Herrera from the Philippines.
Good morning to everyone. So nice to be here in Singapore and in front of you all. It was great also. It was also great hearing developments from our friends from the US, Japan, and Australia. I'm Justin Herrera of the Philippine Strategic Trade Management Office. I'm head of the division responsible for enterprise relations. So throughout the year, we have been doing industry mapping to identify which enterprises are potentially involved with strategic trading. Then we go to them by cluster and try to raise awareness on our legislation and their obligations. The presentation I will be delivering is more or less the same as what we show to our industry stakeholders. So let's get started. All right, so 3 parts. First, an overview of the Strategic Trade Management Act. Then some more of the salient points integral to its implementation. Finally, a rundown of future plans. So why is there a need for strategic trade management? Considered to be the leader in ASEAN region, Singapore recognized this as well. So first, there is a growing threat of proliferators trying to develop weapons of mass destruction, and they're procuring materials from legitimate businesses. So these enterprises could unwittingly participate in these activities too. Third reason being is the Philippines is committed to the UN Security Council Resolution 1540. So 1540 requires states to promote the universal adoption and full implementation, and where necessary, strengthening of multilateral treaties to which they are parties, whose aim is to prevent the proliferation of nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons. Currently, Philippines is a party to the BTWC, NPT, and TWC. So this all served as rationale for the legislation of strategic trade controls in the Philippines. So in 2015, the Republic Act number 10697 was passed. The STMA's long title is the Act Preventing the Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction by Managing the Trade in Strategic Goods, the Provision of Related Services, and for Other Purposes. So, STMA's declaration of policy, the Philippines aims to be a weapons of mass destruction free territory, fulfill commitments and obligations under the UN SCR 1540, and maintain international peace and security, promote economic growth through effective strategic trade management. So the STMA created an interagency policymaking body called the National Security Council Strategic Trade Management Committee, and it acts as the central authority on all matters relating to strategic trade management. It's headed by the Executive Secretary of the Philippines, and 13 heads of departments serve as members. The law also created the Strategic Trade Management Office, a bureau under our Trade Department, serving as the lead government agency responsible for strategic trade management. In the STMO, we have 3 divisions. The division where I am from, the Policy and Enterprise Relations Division. We also have 1 division for licensing and another for enforcement. So you already know what strategic goods are, don't you? So we have adopted this definition. Strategic goods are products considered to be of such military importance that their export is either prohibited altogether or subject to conditions. The list we are using is kind of similar to Singapore's and EU's, and we term it as the National Strategic Goods List, or the NSGL. The NSGL has 3 annexes. The first contains all military goods. The longer list is a dual-use list. The third will contain additional goods determined by the NSE, the National Security Council Strategic Trade Management Committee, to be controlled. The STMA has a catch-all provision. So when a transaction would meet one or couple of the 4 provisions, then it will be subject to CMO licensing as well. So speaking of licensing, provided in the STMA that a company would engage in strategic trade will have to register first to STMO before eventually applying for a license or authorization. So STMO will be issuing 3 types of export authorizations. First is an individual authorization. Okay. Which is granted to companies exporting controlled commodities to one end user only. The global authorization, the one more similar to your bulk license, is granted to exporters of strategic commodities to multiple end users and could be located in multiple countries. It will be valid for 5 years. And finally, the third type is a general license, which would be applicable to low-risk goods bound to low-risk countries. More concrete policy on the use of this license is not yet out to the public. So STMO scope and coverage include activities like export, plus some more. Soon we will be implementing controls on transit, transshipment, re-export, reassignment, imports, and provision of related services. The law provides that it will have both territorial and extraterritorial jurisdiction. So you'll see from this slide what a violator of the STMO could face. He could be charged potentially, both administratively and criminally. Now we go to targets. So these are actually more of the benefits we see getting from legislating and implementing the STMA. We wish to promote economic growth, especially in strategic goods industry. Alongside, the STMA should also strengthen national, even international security and be instrumental to a stronger foreign policy for the Philippines. To achieve this, the effective implementation of the STMA is key. We're also moving towards solidifying policies on the implementation of UN sanctions, localization of treaty obligations in STMO, and promoting the Philippines as a safe manufacturing, processing, and transit hub for strategic goods and technologies. For the next year, we are focusing on these activities. Number one, strengthening our interagency protocols, especially in the areas of technical reachback and risk assessment for our licensing function and enforcement. We're also now ironing out procedures and mechanisms with our trade facilitation agencies like customs and free trade zone authorities when we implement in full in 2020. We're also looking at issuing individual and global authorizations, establishment of a technical advisory committee comprising of industry representatives to assist us, STMO, in a number of things. Finally, and hopefully our IT infrastructure would be operational then. So we have started registering companies as I speak. Remember from the slide earlier that registration in STMO will be essential before a company can apply for a license. We will be starting the export authorization phase in the third quarter of next year for the rest of the activities to be announced. So that ends my presentation. We have a website, dti.gov.ph/business/strategic trade for more information and updates about our office. Have a good day to everyone.
Thank you, Justin. Next, I'd like to introduce a representative from Malaysia, Rizwan.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm Rizwan alias from Strategic Trade Secretariat Meeting Malaysia, and I'm going to share with all of you on the strategic trade controls and regulation in Malaysia, and some changes made to address the DPRK and also other illicit procurement. So this will be my presentation outline for today. I'll talk about the overview of STA, Strategic Trade Act 2010, and also some information on the team, on our SCS team, and also what SA 2010 is governed currently. I will not go to the details of the item classification, and I'll directly go to the STA 2010 updates and also some improvement measures that currently Malaysia is adopting right now. Okay, this is the commitment of Malaysia. It all started here, the commitment under UNSCR 1540, Operation Paragraph 3D, that requires all states to establish domestic controls to control the proliferation of nuclear, chemical, or biological, CBRN, and their means of delivery, and also to maintain appropriate effective national export and transshipment controls, including appropriate laws and regulations to control export, transit, transshipment, and also re-export. Malaysia, as one of the UN state members, is bound and had established our domestic legislation via Strategic Trade Act 2010. And this is how it's translated. From the international level, from the UNSCR level, UNSCR 1540 as the foundation, it was further translated at a domestic level with the establishment of our Strategic Trade Act 2010, and the act was approved by Malaysian Cabinet on March 2010 and gazetted in June 2010. We are on operation full-fledged on 2011. So at the ministerial level, MITI Strategic Trade Secretariat is the caretaker of the Strategic Trade Act 2010. The journey started from 2010, and throughout the years, almost 9 years, there are a lot of things that we have tried to update, including the ATT, Proliferation Financing, and also ITT. This is the team, a very small team, not less, I would say 20 officers from our STS team. So basically, STS is the focal point for STA 2010, is the custodian of the law. STS is responsible for the overall strategic trade management, and also our permit is currently all online. And there are two main activities under the Act. It will be the licensing and also the enforcement activity. So MITI, as the caretaker of the Act, plays a role in licensing, in policies, guidelines, standard operating procedures, outreach, our ICP approvals, and also leads audit and interdiction teams. Apart from MITI, we have 3 more licensing agencies. The first one will be the PSD, the Pharmaceutical Services Division, that take care of the poison export license. We have Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission that take care of the telecommunication and also the electronics part. And also we have ALB that covers the nuclear-related items, also nuclear materials. Apart from the licensing agencies, we also have our enforcement agencies. We have our Royal Malaysian Custom. We have our Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agencies. We have our Royal Malaysian Police, and also the MCMC, Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission. ALB also they have a unit in charge of the enforcement. And recently we have added Bank Negara, our Securities Commission, and also our Labuan Financial Security that currently handled the targeted financial sanctions. So we are currently looking towards to that area. Okay, what STA 2010 governs? So basically, STA 2010 controls the export, transits, transshipment, brokering, the proliferation financing of goods and also technology. As I mentioned before, ITT is covered under STA 2010. That facilitates the design, the development, the production of WMD, Weapon of Mass Destruction, and its delivery system. So for the classification item, just a quick through. Currently we have 10 category, the military category and also the dual use category. And our list is adopted through the EU list. So once the EU list come out with the new list, so our team will take it, not 100%, we are looking towards the Malaysian perspective, and we are going to gazette it based on the domestic requirement, also legislations. So this is what the things that Malaysia is currently doing, the Malaysia's STC update. The first one will be the legal review. So basically, the Strategic Trade Act 2010 and the Strategic Trade Restricted End User and Prohibited End User Order was amended to strengthen export control implementation and keep up with the dynamic and complex environment of strategic trade control in the region. The next updates that I wanted to inform today is the targeted financial sanctions relating to proliferation, as the UNC has imposed certain measures relating to the prevention, suppression, and also disruption of proliferation of WMD and its finance. And this is one of the measures targeted under our TFS rated for proliferations. Another thing that we are going through right now is the ITT guidelines. This is to ensure that control is exercised over ITT for dual use and also weapon technology as a guidance. Currently, we are aggressively conducting outreach to industry and engaging research institution. Most of it is we are reaching out to all the universities in Malaysia, trying to explain to them why they need control on the technology transfers. And the next one will be the ICP enhancement, internal compliance program enhancement. So we are planning to enhance the elements, criteria under the current ICP procedure. And this is to ensure that the company complies with the Act and also the associated regulation. So currently, Malaysia, ICP companies in Malaysia, the numbers is, as at last month, we have 122 companies approved to be an ICP company. So for these ICP companies, they are entitled to a multiple and also bulk permit for a duration of 5 years. So that's why we are trying to push all the companies, all Malaysian companies that relates to strategic trade to go to the ICP program. One of the improvement measures under our legal review is the auto-adoption of the restricted list. For this strategic trade, the restricted end user and also the prohibited end user, we have amendment on order in 2016, and it's been implemented via automatic adoption by the creation of the right link to the official website of the UN. So Malaysia's list is amended in real time according to the list of the designated individuals and entities established, maintained through the UNSCR 1718 and also 2231 for the PRK and also Republic of Iran. Apart from that, one of the major amendments during our STA amendment in 2017 is on the compounding of offences regulation by adding a new clause under Section 50A. So Malaysia is at the stage of finalizing the compounding penalty regulations or offences, and currently we are engaged. We will engage with the stakeholders through the public consultation via Unified Public Consultation Portal. So this exercise is going to be somewhere next month in Malaysia. So the companies will get to give some views on our compounding regulations. So we hope that we can take all the views in consideration. And the implementation of the targeted compounding penalty regulation and also offences is targeted to take effect by the first quarter of next year, once we receive all the feedback and also to get our management approval on the regulations and to be gazetted. On the export of strategic item, so for export to strategic restricted end user country list, we have 13 countries listed. Special permit is required. So if a company application will also be heavily scrutinized, and one-to-one consultation will also be conducted for application for special permit. And for information, no permit will be issued for export of strategic item to prohibited end user list UN 1718 DPRK. And it is embargoed and no exception for transit for strategic item to DPRK. For targeted financial sanction TFS relating to proliferations, in order to control this, we have issued a directive of implementation, TFS-PF, on April 2018. So from that, engagement also outreach to the relevant stakeholders, Bank Negara, Securities Commission, also Labuan Offshore, is currently ongoing. And for information, Malaysia was upgraded to compliance status from the former partial compliance status at the FATF plenary meeting, Financial Action Task Force, that was held in France on October 2018 under Recommendation 7. So to deter the illicit procurement effort, our SOP, our standard operating procedure, is always updated. So this is one of the our targeted things that we wanted to do this year, is to improve our standard operating procedure for ICP. So basically, enhancement of current SOP for licensing and also work progress, and creation of new SOP for enforcement, information intelligence, and also investigation handling, in providing uniformity and consistency among relevant agencies. So guidance for securing processes and also identifying red flag indicators are being included in the SOP as well, as list of websites for reference during licensing processes. Apart from that, we are also working closely with our counterpart in Royal Malaysian Custom, which also have the container control unit in session in Port Klang. And also we have our National Targeting Center also under Royal Malaysian Custom that will collect and also share information, analyze the data received from screening, and do the risk assessment for all the exportation and also importations. Lastly will be the ICP enhancements. As I mentioned before, an ICP is a prerequisite for Malaysian enterprises that wish to avail themselves of bulk and multiple use permit under the Strategic Trade Act. And we'll be revising the ICP with a planned ICP lab scheduled on the 17th of October 2019. And we are currently introducing new elements, including transaction screening, corrective action, and also some elements regarding to ITT. So the revised ICP is based on the benchmarking of other countries to be sought out to our domestic requirement with addition of certain elements. And we have also conducted, prior to this ICP enhancement requirement, we have also conducted ICP enhancement lab with all the agencies and also our stakeholders to identify the gaps and areas that can be improved. So from Malaysia, we're always committed to ensure the compliance also compliance to the UNSCR 1540 and also our domestic regulation. Thank you for listening to all of you, and hope you will get a clear picture on what is SCA 2010 all about, and hope to see you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rizwan. You know, one of the, I think the highlights of, thank you very much, of the first two presentations is, I'd like to say there's no one size fits all. You know, and one of the benefits of gatherings like this is to illustrate the different strategic trade laws and the different ways of implementation and some of the sophistication of the variety of different implementation regimes. I appreciate your presentation and taking a look at some of the more complicated aspects of strategic trade controls, intangible technology transfers, trade finance laws, internal compliance programs as it relates to bulk licensing. One of the pleasures I have of attending events like this is practices that help our own practices in the United States. Next, I'd like to introduce a representative from Thailand, Wanchai Barvitia.
Good morning, all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the Singapore government as a host country, and I would like to thank you for Singapore Customs, the US EXBS, USBIS, and also Japan meetings for co-hosting these events. Okay, let me ask you a bit. How many of you are doing business with Thailand? Can you raise your hand? Quite a lot. Thank you. Thank you for doing business with Thailand. Okay, my name is Wanchai. I'm the Deputy Director General from the Department of Foreign Trade. Okay, my department in charge of DUI licensing agencies. Okay, so we actually own this law. Okay, let me go to the outline of my presentation. Oh, sorry. Okay, I will go through the Thailand Control Weapon of Mass Destruction Related Items Act, okay, 2019, of which I will call TCWMD, okay, and also go through the responsible authority and other related agencies, and also the sanction measures. Okay, let me show you the brief history of this TCWMD Act. Okay, we start drafting this law on 2016, okay, and we submit the draft to the Parliament on the 2nd of September 2016, and then they send it to the Council of State for reviewing it. Okay, I have to go through this whole process of hard work with this lawyer, the legal expert, to draft this law, and then after that we have to send this draft back to the National Assembly in 2018, and then finally we have the law. The law was enacted and announced in the Royal Gazette on the 30 April of 2019. So it's only 5 to 6 months ago. So it's a fairly new law. Okay, and the law will be effective on the 1st of January 2020. So in this law, it contains the 32 articles. We have the general provision, the committees, and the control of the WMD-related items, how the appeal, the authorized officers, the civil penalty, and the penalties. And this law contains of 7 sections. We haven't translated this law to English yet, and we will do it later on. The coverage is that my department is the responsible authority under the TCWMD Act and has the power to issue the subsequent rule and regulation under this act, okay, including the list of the specific items that will be regulated under the TCWMD Act and the control activities of each items in order and requirement in order to engage in the control activities. Okay, and the TCWMD Act regulates all items that are related to the spread of the WMD, and also include the military armament, dual-use items, both tangible and intangible, that have the commercial interest, technology, and also software. And we also control not only export, it can be controlled the re-export, transshipment, tranship, brokering, and other action that has a purpose for spreading the WMD. All in all, this law is in compliance with the UNSCR 1540. And the scope of the law is the territorial jurisdiction is cover all natural and jurisdictional person who engage or intend to engage in the activity covered by the law, and also the extraterritorial jurisdiction of which cover all Thai person provide the activity covered by the law wherever located. Okay, and the penalty. Okay, if someone violates the license provision, the maximum imprisonment of 2 years and or fine up to 200,000 baht. Okay, if such offense is related to the WMDs, the maximum imprisonment of 10 years and or a fine up to 1 million baht. Okay, if the exporters or the importer give us the false or misleading documents or information in order to obtain the license, the maximum imprisonment of 1 year and or fine up to 100,000 baht. Okay, and the current status of this law, my department is now under the drafting of the regulation and notifications, and also working on the procedure and the step, and also the licensing office. This is hard work for us at the moment because this is the new law, and we have to do a lot of capacity building on our staff, and we also have to do a lot of education on the industry. So this is really this is one of the challenging job that I have at the moment, and also we also get a lot of complaint from our exporters that they do not want to be enforced by this law, and so we have to talk a lot with them, try to calm them down, and try to find the way, you know, to at least not to make them panic. We also have developed the IT system that help them classify the goods that they want to export. Okay, they have to input the harmonized code and then just go through all the questions and answers, at least to get them some idea whether their product is under the EU list or not. Okay, this is what we try to do. We got a lot of help from the MITI and also from the US EXBS and also from the EU P2P programs that they try to educate us. But it's really complicated, and we have to convince our politicians as well that what we are doing now is not obstruct the trade. You know, I got a direct order from my minister that don't try to obstruct the export. If you do it, you will lose your job. You know? So I have to be very cautious on this. Okay, that's why we come up with the plan at the moment. Okay, despite the fact that the law will become effective on the 1st of January, I will give some time for the industry to adjust themselves, come to register with DFT first, okay, and then learn what is the DUI. Okay, we will spend a lot of time next year, 6 months until July, you know, to outreach, to educate the industry, ask them to come to me and then register if their product is the DUI. Okay, and then we will start issuing license on July of next year. Okay, and then the transshipment and brokering technology software, we will do it later on. We want to learn and we want to do it from the best practice. So we will not implement everything at one time. Okay, and as I said, we will ask them to register. There will be no cost at the moment. I mean, everyone can come to the DFT and request for licensing without any fees. Okay, because we want to encourage all the SME, all the companies to come if they have doubt whether their product is DUI or not. Okay, and we intend to issue the license as a bulk license in the valid of 1 year. But this one still under consideration. I cannot guarantee at the moment. Okay, but it might be the transactional license, you know, using one time as well for for some countries or some product that have a high risk. Okay, and this is our export license procedures. Okay, we're going to have the e-classification that I have talking about, and we have the e-registration. You know, the company can register with us via the computers. E-licensing, they can request the licensing without any papers, and we will send all the data to the Thai custom. And we also have the cash-out system. This is difficult. Cash-out is another thing that we have to look into. I mean, in the detail. Okay, this is roughly our workflow. Okay, the thing is this: we want all the exporters to know whether their product is DUI or not in the first place. Okay, they have to check with our system. They have to ask the supplier. Let's say if they import from Japan, something that embedded into their product, they have to ask the supplier whether this product is DUI or not. If it's DUI and they want to export it again, then request for the license. Okay, and if they have no idea, they have to come to the DFT to ask, and then we have the group of experts to help them classify. This is also really difficult. I have no idea. I mean, I'm the economist, and I cannot, you know, classify these nuclear things. So I have to ask someone and have to trust them. Okay, if you said this is a DUI, I believe you. Okay. All right. Okay. So the control list is we apply the EU list, and it's still 2012. Sorry about that. I know that the EU list update every year, but I cannot follow that. I have to translate it to Thai language. That's the problem, and it's a very tedious job that I have to wait a bit. I try to negotiate with the lawmakers that can I use the English version? So they said no. You have to use Thai. So I cannot do anything. So I still use the 2012, okay? And in this list, okay, there's the tangible item is about 1,462 items, and the intangible item is 2,031 items. Okay, when we talk about tangible and intangible, you can imagine there's another whole set of problems that how we can solve these intangible things. That we'll deal with it later on. Now we're going to deal with the tangible first. Okay, and in these tangible items, 232 items is handled by other agencies. So if you're doing business with Thailand, you have to know that not only DFT is handling these issues, another agency is also issuing the license as well. Okay. Let's say who is it? Okay, we have the department, the Defense Industrial Department. They handle all the ML lists. Okay, not all, some of it. And also Department of Industrial Work, they handle the chemical things. Industrial of Medical Science, they handle the biological things. And also the Office of Atom for Peace, they handle the nuclear things. And also the Office of the National Broadcasting and Telecommunication Commission, they handle the telecommunication things. And we have the enforcing agency, of which, of course, is the custom. Okay, we also have a bit of issues with the custom because we try to ask them whether you can determine whether this item is a dual-use item, at the port. They said, no, I cannot do it. It's too difficult. Okay, and understand them. It's really difficult to see it by hand, but we have to work with them because they are the front line. We have to work with them, to stop the DUI items. If there's no license from us, they have to stop it. And also this is the related agency that I'm talking about. So you can use this information with your colleagues in Thailand because there's a law over there that, your colleagues in Thailand can study, or if they have any problems, they can contacting us. Okay, and I talk a bit about the sanction measures. Okay, if the UN have announced any new sanction, okay, we have to apply two laws at the moment. The first one is the Export and Import of Goods Act, okay, 1979. This one will handle all the import and export of tangible items. That is not DUI items, okay, and we will apply this TCWMD on the dual-use items. But at the moment, export only. We cannot control import at the moment. Our law is not touching on import. But in the future, if we need to handle the import of the DUI items, we have to propose a new decree, okay, to control the import items. Okay, and we have done sanctions on North Korea and Iran under several of the UNSCR announcements. So this is what Thailand have done. And if you have any question, I'm only Thai in this room. You have to ask me anyway. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wan Chai. Oftentimes we forget some of the real pleasures of strategic trade controls that Wan Chai highlighted. Lawyers, politicians, and industry that sometimes does not see the benefit in the strategic trade controls. Certainly all challenges that we have to deal with. One of the pleasures of my job is over the years the relationships we've built with different countries that we work with. And certainly Singapore is one of those countries. And I've had the pleasure of working with Janine for several years. For our next panel participant, Janine Ho from Singapore.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you. I understand that there are some international participants here. Maybe you can just show a raise of hands. Who came from overseas? Ooh, right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I hope this has been a learning experience for you. Today, I'll be touching on Singapore's updates to our strategic trade controls. This is a summary of the changes that we've made this year, which I will elaborate in my presentation. With the ever-growing proliferation concerns of the international community over countries for the development of the nuclear, chemical, biological, and missile development programs, Singapore has expanded the list of items controlled for transshipment and transit where permits are required. With this change, which came to effect on the 1st of May 2019, we have harmonized the list of 134 items controlled both for transshipment and transit. So for our foreign guests here who bring goods through the use of Singapore ports, this is something to take note of. Some examples of items controlled for transshipment and transit are propellants, high-quality metals like maraging steels, and titanium-based duplex stainless steel, machine tools, vacuum pumps, centrifugal separators. Our list of controlled items was also recently updated and had come to effect on the 1st of October 2019. The Strategic Goods Control Order 2019 is based on the changes made in the 2018 Wassenaar Arrangement munitions list, as well as the 2018 European Union dual-use list. Some of the new controls includes a new entry for ML8A 43 for explosive, TKX50, a new category code 1B235 for target assemblies and components, a new entry 2B350K for prefabricated repair assemblies, new controls for rocket motor cases and insulation components and nozzles in 9A106B. Apart from these additions, I'm glad to announce that we've also removed some controls. For example, 1B229 for water-hydrogen sulfide exchange tray columns, certain technology for interactive graphics under Category 2, electronic items such as flash memories and magnetic random access memories under Category 3, and certain cameras under Category 6. In addition, we have updated the Strategic Goods Control Brokering Order 2019 to expand controls over goods as well as technologies for ML1, ML2, ML3, ML4, and ML8 items. Based on your feedback, we heard you. We have revised and harmonized the templates for end users to complete for both individual and bulk permit applications in Singapore. This revised format has fields that are similar to the template of the EU end user certificate. The fields for both the revised EUS templates of the individual and the bulk permits are the same, except that the EUS template for the bulk permits would have an additional footnote, highlighted in yellow above on the screen, which is relevant only to bulk permits. With this new format, the end user statement is to be provided by foreign consignees who are owners of the goods or can decide on the control of the goods. These foreign consignees who can sign off on the end user statement include traders, distributors, wholesalers, stockists, resellers, assemblers, fabricators, evaluators, testers, repairers, value-added manufacturers and resellers, franchisees, and original equipment manufacturer. If the foreign consignee is not the end user of the items and the end user is known at the time of the transfer from Singapore, your customer can fill up the address. The foreign consignee can also fill up the details of the end user together with the address. If the goods are to be shipped first to a freight forwarder appointed by your customer, who is referred to as the consignee in the end user statement, your customer can fill up the address where the goods will first be delivered to and add a remark for it, for example, the warehouse outside the warehouse address outside of Singapore. In general, entities stated in the US, such as the exporter, consignee, and end user, should match those in the sales and shipping documents. Where entities in the US and the sales and shipping documents do not match the details declared in the permits, customs may require additional documents or further details of the nature of the transaction and the parties involved. We have also updated our resources for strategic trade management on the Singapore Customs website. In July this year, we have published a catch-all guide for traders that covers permit requirements, best practices, and red flags to look out for when determining if an item falls under the catch-all controls. With the adoption of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2428/2018, Customs has included a new prohibition on South Sudan under the 7th schedule of the Regulations of Import and Export Regulations to prohibit the export, including the transshipment and transit of arms and related material. On screen are some common items prohibited and countries sanctioned by the United Nations Security Council, which can also be found in our 7th schedule of Singapore's Regulation of Imports and Exports Regulations. Please refer to the Singapore Customs website for a full list of goods prohibited by the United Nations Security Council. Lastly, Customs would like to take this opportunity to remind the industry that ever since the 8th of November 2017, Singapore has prohibited all commercially traded goods to or from North Korea. This includes goods that are transshipped or brought in transit through Singapore. Non-commercial goods, such as those for humanitarian aid, are still allowed but are subjected to prevailing United Nations Security Council sanctions on the North Korea. With that, I thank you for your attention and I look forward to our discussions.
Thank you, Janine. So we'd like to open it up to questions now. One of the recurring themes, particularly from our presentations by Justin and Wan Chai, was their comments on economic growth. And I think Wan Chai thanked the folks that were doing business in Thailand. I'd like to just say that, oftentimes as regulators, we often lose sight of the fact that strategic trade controls is good for business. I think one of the first times I ever came to Singapore, I met a company that had decided not to invest or set up shop in a certain country in the region and came to Singapore because of its strategic trade control laws. Just another example of how it really is good for business. So with that, I'd like to open it up to questions. Table 20. And if you're exporting to Iran, I would just say no.
Good afternoon. Ginny, you really give me a problem. Ginny, you see, I got a problem here. Today I attend, then you said that 1st November there's a new strategic end user statement form.
Yes.
But 3 months ago, I wrote to Singapore Customs and Singapore Customs approved me a blanket permit for my partial shipment until December. So how this end user statement I have to re-board and reapply a new one?
No, you don't. Okay, so this is from new transactions with effect from 1st November. So you can still use that one because it was already pre-approved. But moving forward, your next transaction, please fill out the new EUS or get your customer to do that.
So I can download from your website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And sorry, next I got one question for Mr. Wiswa from Malaysia. I want to check with you that Malaysia also have strategic goods listing, which I go through the list. But then the problem here I have is that strategic control is not under Malaysia Custom. It's under another different department, but I can't find the website and the contact.
Okay. Okay. It is different. I think it depends on the country itself. For Malaysia, the Strategic Trade Act is governed by Ministry of International Trade and Industry. So you can find all the information in http://www.miti.gov.my. All our lists is in there. All our FAQs regarding STA is in there. So all the informations are embedded in that. We have also a specific information for STA itself, so you can go and try to find it in our official MITI website.
MITI website.
Yep. Type in MITI Malaysia, and then you'll get the information.
No wonder the Malaysia Custom hold my goods for so long. I said, no, this is strategic. Oh. Thank you very much. Thank you. So sorry. One question for Wah Chai. Okay. I'm a troublemaker, so sorry. Mr. Wah Chai, it seems that your strategic goods, your system is very good, but why the 19B and BOI and so many of your documents are all in Thai? It's very difficult for foreigner. Any way to translate to English so we can interpret easier, can understand your regulation easier. Thank you.
I take your advice, but I cannot do anything.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Any other questions? In table 12?
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Lee. I'm from Halliburton, Singapore. I have a question for Mr. Wan Chai. Mr. Wan Chai, we do have businesses with Thailand, but we also have the businesses with Myanmar, but uses the location for Thailand as the transit warehouse, where Thailand have the free trade zone. All right, if your strategic control rule roll out in January 2020, so the person who responsible for deliver the item to your free trade zone is only at the end point that we deliver. So the exporting party may not be us that we are actually sending in the cargo. So who is responsible to file those documentation for the export from your soil location to others country? So is it impacted because the item that we are delivering to your free trade zone is mainly end there? So responsibility will be taken over by the customer. So in this point, I mean, sure there will be a panic button. Those are not educated, they will say that, oh no. So it is really will be impacted because they will hope, because they don't understand, right? They have a lot of things. But businesses is still businesses. So what is your advice on moving forward?
Thank you. So I know that that's a problem at the moment. That's why I do not intend to control the transshipment at the moment, even after the 1st of January. Okay, we will control only export and re-export. Transshipment, still you can do it as usual, but we will do it. We will study on it, and we will control it later on. Not now. Too difficult.
Table 20. Our company also faces the same problem sometimes. We do have the translation copy, but we get our broker who do that. Because our broker is actually all Thai specialists. We engage them, and you guys can actually have a broker or any of the forwarding company and give you a help. And you won't have any problem. So far, it's really user-friendly. Because that translation is only one time. You are using only one time. You won't have more. So this is my sharing with you.
You can send it to me as well.
How's that for service?
Question at table 24.
Table 24.
Hi, Jess. All right, my name is Virus from Boeing. My question would be, is there any exemption provision within your respective strategic goods regulation which allows for the export of government shipments on behalf of the government?
So the question is, are there any benefits for government?
No, exemptions within the regulation.
Exemptions.
Permit exemption.
Sure. Well, I know for the export administration regulations, there is a license exception, a general license for government transactions. And I will turn it over to...
Okay, I think for Malaysia, we have an exemption under our Regulation 22 for the government and visiting force. So basically, any act authorized by, carried out, or for or on behalf of the government is exempted. This is under our Strategic Trade Act 2010 from Malaysia.
Similarly, in Singapore, we have such an exemption. Supposing that Boeing is exporting some goods on behalf of the Singapore government, you need to get the Singapore government to give you a letter to say that this is a shipment belonging to them so that we can identify that. Then a permit exemption under the Strategic Goods Control Act is allowed. But for this transaction, you still need to take up a trade net permit to account for the statistics of this export. Does that clarify?
It's not really easy to get anything from government. Let me be honest with you. What about Philippines and Thailand? Is that part of the regulation as well?
I think it's provided in the Republic Act 10697 that government-to-government transfers will be what do you call this? Not licensable, but of course it should be coordinated as well with our office.
For Thailand, if the government export the strategic goods, it will be exempted.
Thank you.
By the decree that I will issue later on, not now.
Thank you, sir.
All right, any other questions?
Hi, my name is Julie from Midwest Freight Forwarding Company. We have shipments of ML items. We effect on vessels that will transit Port Klang. And because of this, we need to apply transit permits. And we approached MITI rep office in Singapore. We wrote in, we called, and they direct us to MITI Malaysia's email. There's a person given. We write to this person, but several times we send reminders, but they never respond at all. So, can you help on this?
Firstly, sorry about that. Maybe maybe you can share that email because in MITI itself, this SCS is barely a new team. Lots of changes in the offices. So it's currently a new focal point for MITI itself. So maybe you can share the information to me after this, and we'll get things sorted. Thank you very much.
So let me just ask the panel a question to kind of add on to that. Does all 4 of my ASEAN regulating agencies here have a general inbox for questions like that? I know Singapore Customs does. Does STS have a general inbox that people can send questions to?
Yes, we do have.
Is Thailand going to have the same?
Yeah. You can write it down now.
Okay. And then I know the Philippines, you guys do also. And so maybe we, as part of the postings for the after, when we put this stuff up, we'll come up and we'll have that. Because as you know, probably next year, you'll see 4 different faces up here from each of these 4 organizations. And we want you to have a general place to be able to send these questions to. So we'll take that on, and I will make sure that we get all of that, because I think that's important. Again, because you don't want to have, one person's contact and then they switch agencies. And then you have to spend 6 months to try and develop that next contact. That general inbox is generally the best place to send those inquiries. And then don't let it go 3 or 4 days without a response, then send it again. And then just keep, as we say, pile it on. Because you're not the only one sending emails, but sometimes it takes us a while to get to them.
All right, we have a few more minutes. Are there any more questions? Table 24 and table 30. Would you raise your hand? So table 24 back there, and table 30. We'll get you next.
Good afternoon. Part of my trip here is not only to attend this seminar, but also to renew our bulk permit for Singapore Customs. So listening to presentations from Malaysia and the Philippines, their equivalent bulk permit validity is about 5 years. So have Singapore Customs ever considered increasing that validity into 5 years? Thank you.
Not at the moment.
All right, that's a straight answer.
We have bulk permits for up to 3 years, and we are very concerned about certifying whether a company qualifies for bulk permit. That's why we don't extend it to 5 years. And for companies who are familiar with our auditors coming down or assessors coming down to your premise, we check every single bit of it to ensure that you have the controls in place to do that.
That's why I'm asking, because it's quite strenuous. There are a lot of documents that you have to provide in order to get certified. So I was probably thinking maybe you can increase it to 5 years. Probably wishful thinking.
We will keep that in mind. Thank you for your feedback, but I would say not at the moment.
All right, thank you.
Table 24. All right, so I think the question was how to facilitate trade with transit or transshipment controls. So we'll start with Janine.
So in Singapore, we do require transshipment and transit items that are listed in the 4th and the 5th schedules of the Strategic Goods Control Regulations to take up permit. It is a declaration made by either the shipping line or the freight forwarder or aircraft or their agent to take up this permit. This permit, the requirement for it is to take up 5 working days in advance before the item comes to Singapore. But most of the time, the permits are approved very, very quickly. When we do ask you for information with regards to that item, please give it to us, and we will ensure that we will process it ASAP.
Okay, same goes to Malaysia. We have an exemption under our Regulation 25, Condition for non-requirement for permit for transit and also transshipment. There are several criteria to be met, and in order to facilitate the transit and transshipment issues, we are currently undertaking an exercise to look upon all our lists in the transit and also transshipment issues. So we will inform if there is any items to be taken out from the schedule to all the industries. And definitely, the industries will be one of the person that we are going to talk to in order for us to facilitate all the trade facilitation issues.
For the Philippines, the STMA covers transit and transshipments as 2 activities that will be controlled. Currently, and for the Philippine case, we're still rolling out export authorizations, licensing exports, and we actually see us controlling transit and transshipment next. But yes, I agree with what you said. Industry stakeholders like you, freight forwarders, logistics providers would really provide inputs and insights from for governments as we craft the more solid policies on how to implement the controls on transit and shipment.
Well, I do understand your burden. Yeah. But if we implement it, you have to do it anyway. I mean, no choice.
Yeah.
So we got time for one more question before lunch.
Okay,
Sorry,
follow
could
up.
I ask a follow-up question? Oh, this is a lot better. Just a follow-up question on that. Are there any plans to adopt more rigorous manifesting, techniques? Those ones followed, for example, by the U.S. government to eliminate that administrative piece in country for transshipments?
So manifest data, advanced manifest data?
Yeah. Advanced manifest.
I think these are two separate matters. Yeah, well, in the US, there is advanced manifest, but they still require you to take up a license with the BIS for the transshipment and transit of certain items. So it's two separate matters. I would say it's the same in Singapore too. Yes, but I think we all need to understand that transshipment and transit controls is to ensure that the goods that come through the ports are actually going to parties that are not of proliferation concern. So this is about international security. And it's something that, yes, I know it's a pain to industries, but it's a necessary pain so that regulators and governments can ensure that we are responsible players in this international trade.
I have to give a disclaimer that we are very careful with security and customs, and this is why we're here.
Can I?
George.
Well, I'd just like to go back to the transit or transshipments that the lady over there asked about Thailand's business. That means goods shipping into Thailand to the free trade zone. Free trade zone is basically for tax exemption first, right? So that no customs duty will be paid. But it doesn't mean that it is not a re-export. So always remember, if it is a re-export from the free trade zone, it still applies to the export and re-export licensing. So you have to understand what is the meaning, how you define transit and transshipments under individual jurisdictions. So individual jurisdictions, the definition could be slightly different. So you have to read between the lines. Thanks.
Well, thank you, George. And I think with that, we're going to close this session. But our panel participants will be available during lunch and after lunch. And I think we're back on schedule.
We are.
I would like to thank our panel participants for a very engaging panel.
And let me just add, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. This is what we're here for. I mean, this was the panel that we worked really hard to make sure we could put in front of you, because these are the laws that affect you more than anything else, because these are your own laws here within ASEAN. So for lunch, same place as break was, feel free to bring your food back into here if you so choose. Again, if you haven't picked up your free parking pass, please go to the AV table and pick it up. I'm giving my folks a chance to I see people already getting up and walking out. Have a nice lunch. We'll see you in an hour.